Let's talk about using images in the classroom. Creating with multimedia is a great way to engage and challenge your students, and today we're going to be looking at the first of 3 different types of media that you can use. We're talking about images, audio, and video. Great ways for students to create in the classroom. Now, an image-based project is arguably the easiest of the 3 types of media to work with. This is a great place to get started. You can do an image project in a class period or less, and you can make them more complicated and scale them up as you need to. Now, some general principles that I want to make you aware of if you're incorporating an image-based project into the classroom. First of all, obviously, your students are going to either collect images from places on the web or take their own images. We'll talk about that here in a minute. You also need to give a little bit of thought to where you will store those images, especially if they're going to be collected for use in a project later on. I've got a couple suggestions for you, but you got to put them somewhere, whether it's your computer or Google Drive or photo or something like that. Then you'll also, depending on what you're going to do with those images, need to be aware of some image editing tools, whether it's a tool kind of like a Photoshop type tool where you're actually editing the photo, or if it's a more graphic design tool like a Publisher, InDesign, PageMaker style tool where you're creating a graphic based image product. I'll give you some suggestions for that as well. A lot of times one simple way to work with images is to take a photo, select a photo, and then add some type of a message on top of it. Simple, very easy, and can be effective way to demonstrate and document your students' learning. So first of all, let's talk about taking images or collecting them. If you're using laptops in your classroom, Chromebooks, Macs, PCs, almost certain that those devices have a webcam on them. So I'm on a Chromebook right now. I've got a webcam on here. That webcam is sufficient. It's not great. You're not going to take any, really good photos with it, but it's good for documenting work. A kid can hold up a drawing, hold up a math worksheet, and snap a quick picture of it using that webcam. So the webcam is going to be sufficient for more of those documentation style activities. I'll give you some examples here in a moment. Another option is to take a screenshot. So this is good if your students are working in some type of a program, whether it's the Google Drive, whether it's Classroom, Quizlet, something, and you can just ask them to capture a screenshot to document what they did that class period or the progress that they're making. So we'll talk about that in greater depth this week during the course, but that's certainly an easy option as well. If you have mobile devices in your classroom, maybe you teach at the middle and high school level, your students have their own phones, maybe you've got some iPads that you can use in the classroom, pull in, those are great options as well. One thing that I'm testing right now is I've got this box of random technology stuff, and in that box I had 2 super old iPhones. And I'm in the process of just clearing them out, getting rid of everything, no apps, no games, and I'm just going to hand them to my students and say, take some pictures. Document your learning. If you just have a couple, you could just select a kid for the class period and say, your job is to document what we do today. Those photos can go into Google Photos. They're not necessarily going to be shared, but if you want to create a slideshow or select the best pictures to maybe share with parents, you could certainly do so. So it's an easy way to get some photos if you have some old phones. The third option I don't want you to overlook is just gathering images from the web. And this is going to be certainly important if you're teaching like history or science, where it may be difficult for you to take your own images. We'll be looking at some places that you can find royalty-free, open source, Creative Commons images to use in class projects. So those are some ideas for capturing and collecting images. Like I mentioned, you certainly want to store those images somewhere. Now, one option, kind of by default, your images will go to either your phone, your device, or your computer. That is not a great idea. 2 problems. Number one, it's more difficult to share those images if they're on a personal device. And then secondly, they're not very safe in terms of being backed up if anything happens to your device. So I would recommend one of these two options, either Google Drive, which is great for sharing. Certainly throw them in there. If you're using G Suite for Education, you have free unlimited storage, so you don't have to worry about filling things up. The only challenge with Google Drive is that it just treats images just like files, and it doesn't have any special photo organizing features. Depending on what you're doing and how often you're going to be working with images, I would push you to Google Photos, which would allow you to organize pictures into albums for specific projects. You can search, organize by date. It's great. So I'll give you some thoughts, some ideas on using Google Photos in the classroom this week as well, but Drive or Google Photos is what I would recommend. Now I want to just quickly revisit the framework from the introduction to this course. We talked about 3 ways to use multimedia in the classroom. Number 1, documenting student work. Number 2, asking students to demonstrate their learning. And then number 3, displaying student learning for others. So 3 just super quick ways that you can accomplish those 3 goals using an image-based project. So if we're talking about documenting student work, we're really just capturing work as it happens. And that's what I mentioned, handing the phone to a kid and just say, hey, you're in charge of documenting what we do today. For documenting style activities, we're just going to snap some pictures, super raw, no editing, not really going to do anything with them other than just say, hey, this is what happens. Here's a couple of examples. That's my son there on the left. He did a class project where he dressed up and did a wax museum project on Neil Armstrong. So we just took a quick picture documenting that he had done that so we could remember it. On the right, that's my daughter's class. They were doing a breakout and I just snapped a quick picture just to capture the learning that was taking place. That's it. So that's a super easy way. You could do that every class period. It would literally take you 30 seconds or less to snap those pictures. Now what you do need to think about is, what are you going to do with them? Are students going to submit these? Are you just going to save them and look at them throughout the year? So have a plan for where these pictures are going to go once you've taken them. Secondly, we can use image projects for students to demonstrate their learning. Now this goes beyond documenting, because students are going to need to reflect or add some type of thought to the images that they've either taken or collected. So this can be a single image or multiple image. They're going to annotate and write on top of that image, maybe accompanied by some type of writing piece as well. So here's an example. This is a daily blog, an elementary blog, or actually really just a journal. So a student has taken a picture. Now that is kind of a documenting style picture. It's just a photo of what they did in the class period, but we've added in the writing component where the student is reflecting on that process, what they learned, what they did. So this goes a little bit deeper than those documenting ideas that we looked at just a moment ago. The third option is a display project. And display projects you're not going to do often, but they're a great way to showcase student learning for others. Display projects are meant to be shared with parents, teachers, administrators, other classmates in the school. Now, you may want to turn this into kind of a portfolio. So maybe you take pictures along the way to demonstrate a student's progression in a particular skill or project they've been working on. Here's an example from the Dryden Art blog, and these students have been working on artist statements. So this is something that they thought about a long time throughout the semester. They had to create an image with a quote, stylize it as you see here, to kind of demonstrate or say, this is what I believe about art. So this is something that was meant to be shared to others. So it's a little more polished, a little more thought goes into it. Those are 3 different ideas, some framework. We're going to get into more ideas throughout this week as we study images, but we're going to be looking at these image tools. So some basic tools, just looking at the tools that are built into Google Drive and screenshots. The intermediate tools, we're looking at Google Slides, a couple of drawing, kind of free drawing tools like Chrome Canvas and AutoDraw, and then Canva, which is more of a publisher InDesign type tool. Then I have a couple of advanced ones. If you really want to go deep and create one of those display style projects, we'll be looking at Pixlr, which is kind of like Photoshop, LucidPress, and PictoChart, which are more graphic design style tools. Excited to explore images with you deeper this week. Let's get started.